Welcome back. Now, they make up some of the most emotional moments on TV of all time, but as journalist Andrew Pearce recently found out, not all family reunions are like the tear-jerking scenes we love to see on screen.
Now, almost 50 years after his biological mother left him in a children's home, just weeks after he was born, Andrew decided it was the right time to finally track her down.
What followed was an extraordinary set of twists and turns, leading him on a journey across the UK to find answers he desperately wanted.
And as he opens up about the story in his new book, Finding Margaret, he's joining us in the studio right now. There's the book.
First time you've seen it?
This is so exciting for me. I've never written a book before, and I've not seen the book before, so can I touch it?
Would you like to hold it? There you go.
You've never written a book before?
Never written a book before.
Wow.
People assume I have.
Yeah.
I've been involved in lots of political books before, but never had my own book with my name on the front.
Well, Andrew, thanks for joining us.
What a book to write about.
It's so funny, because this is a story, and, you know, you're Catholic, I'm Catholic, and you are as well. I wouldn't say it's an exclusively Catholic story, but I've seen this play out so many times, especially that post-war period of women maybe having children out of wedlock, and then this story ends up kind of happening, the adoptive story. So tell us where this started for you.
So I'd agonised for years about finding my birth mother, because I was adopted. The official adoption went through when I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
I'd been in the orphanage for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
When my mum and dad found me and fell in love with this curious little boy and brought me up in Swindon, had a lovely life. So I felt plunged. I had all this guilt about would I find my birth mother because of my mum and dad.
Yeah.
But Dad had said to me privately, you know, you should find your birth mother because she used to visit you all the time. Because Margaret Connolly, that was her name, christened me Patrick James Connolly, used to visit me in the orphanage regularly. So it was a huge thing for her to then give me up.
Yeah.
She decides at some point she's got to give me up for adoption. So many years later, I'm nearly 50, I think, I've got to find this woman because I need her to know I'm OK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I assumed she'd be thinking about me every birthday, certain times of the year. So I set off on this extraordinary journey, and it was far more emotional than I thought. And I was shocked to discover you get a file from social services, which is collated from the adoption agency.
How hard is it to find that file? Like, how does it work?
It can take a long time, but fortunately, I was brought up in the first years by the Sisters of Nazareth in the Nazareth House Orphanage in Cheltenham, and they provided a file for social services. I was stunned to read that Margaret was about 29 when she had me. I'd assumed she'd be 16 or 17.
Yeah.
But in fact, I did my own homework. She was 34 when she had me. She was about 3 weeks from her 35th birthday.
Why?
Amazing. So what's that about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a reference in the file to a father called Jimmy Coffey. I've tracked down his family, and he died just a couple of weeks after I moved into the orphanage. He was struck by a car. Tragic, but was he really the father?
Ah.
Was he... A priest explained to me he could be what they call a toe tag father. He was taken into hospital. He was dead on arrival in hospital. He had a toe tag on his body, James Coffey. Was that a convenient name for my father? Because was Margaret protecting somebody, which is why I stayed in the home for so long? Was she having a relationship potentially with somebody else?
Because then I guess your journalistic instincts then, and the detective part of that takes...
So I found the person who was standing next to Jimmy Coffey and he was killed. We found Margaret as well, which was... we nearly had to give up, but great Jane Moore, who you know from Loose Women, she's done this before. She used some real old-fashioned journalistic techniques to track her down because she'd warned me, I think it's game over, because even back then in the early 60s, Margaret went out of her way to not be found. No middle name, no addresses, no date of birth. Jane found her, and then she was in Birmingham. Extraordinary. I'd worked on the Birmingham Mail for 2 years, not knowing my birth mother was just 3 miles away, because I was born in Bristol, so I assumed she lived around there. So we went to her house. I went with Amanda Patel, who's a fellow columnist on the Mail.
Because you was advised to do that, wasn't you? Go with a female.
Go with a female, knock on the door, don't write, because if she opens the letter, she may not open the letter, somebody may open the letter for her. I was in a taxi around the corner, and...
Is your heart racing?
Oh, my God.
How are you feeling?
I'm so anxious. I mean, I'm nervous. The taxi driver is looking at the car. He knows something amazing is happening. And so Amanda knocks on the door. Nobody's in. So frustrating, except a little dog that's yapping. And then I wipe the back window of the cab, and I see a dot on the horizon. And I absolutely know, without a shadow of a doubt, my birth mother is approaching. Jane Moore rings as that is happening, and she said, it'll be her. I ring Amanda and said, she's walking down the street. She said, who is? I said, Margaret. How do you know? I said, it's her. So she
You
walks
just
up the
felt it?
path. Yeah, I felt it. So there's obviously this link
Yeah.
that continues. And remember, she'd looked after, she cared about me for 2.5 years. So she walks up the garden path. If she turns left, it's not her. If she turns right to this house, it's her. And it was her. Amanda knocks on the door. She denies it's her. She denies it's anything to do with her. But Amanda's looking at this face and thinks, it's you.
It's the familiarity,
I know it's
isn't
you.
it? Yeah.
And she shows her a photograph of little Patrick in the orphanage, and she's stroking the photograph, and she said, he's crying, it's so sad. And she says, he's around the corner, your Patrick. She denies it's her. She closes the door on Amanda. We go to the pub. Of course you do. We drink one of the worst bottles of wine we've ever drank. I think if it had been the most expensive wine on the planet, it would have still been horrible.
Yeah.
And Jane Moore rings and she says, Amanda has to go back.
Yeah.
So that was a big ask. She went back and Margaret opened the door and she said, I've been praying you'd return.
Oh.
It's me. And so she didn't meet me there and then because she was worried about... She's got 4 children.
Yeah.
They're grown up and she's got grandchildren.
So she didn't want you to meet at the house?
She didn't, no. So we met in the British Home Store's cafe.
Yeah.
Not quite what I'd intended. I thought we might go somewhere a little bit more, but that was clearly where she felt comfortable.
Yeah.
And we were there for an hour. But the curious thing, she didn't ask me a thing.
About your life?
No.
Do you think that's guilt on her behalf?
I think it could be guilt. I think it was her way of dealing with it. So she told me a lot about her life with the man she'd married and the 4 children. The man she married knew nothing about me. Not a thing. Nobody knew.
So your sisters and brothers didn't know anything
nothing.
either?
No. They've only known about the fact they've got a half-brother in the last week.
She kept those secrets.
Extraordinary secret.
Why do you
that
think she kept such a massive secret? Why do you think... Where did that come from?
Well, she said to me, what I did was a sin. That is her Catholicism. I'm still a Roman Catholic and I'm very passionate about my Catholicism. She said, I had sex out of marriage and you were the result and it was a sin and I can't remember anything and it's my punishment. But I think she could remember things because she knew all about her marriage. She married her husband while I was still in the orphanage, which some people find extraordinary, but I think good for her.
Yeah.
She had a chance at happiness and she took it.
Would you advise people, Andrew, to... Obviously, it's a huge undertaking and it's one that can take you in places you might not want to go. Would you advise people to do what you've done?
Absolutely. I have been overwhelmed since the mail serialisation with letters, emails, phone calls from people, some in their 80s, some in their 30s, who don't know their mother, don't know their father, have tried to find them and failed, or wish they tried to find them. And I'd say if you're watching, do it, because it's quite a cathartic process. Look, this didn't end with the answers that I wanted. She had her reasons, and I even went to her funeral, by the way.
Yeah.
But do it, because it is an extraordinary journey. And you know what it really did for me? I had absolutely no doubt about it that Mum and Dad, who adopted me, were the best parents.
Yeah.
So at the end of this process, if I needed any reminding, that Mum and Dad were the best. And that's why the book is dedicated to Betty and George and Swindon, because they were just the best. They were just the best parents I could have hoped for.
Oh, Andrew, it's a beautiful, poignant story. It's out now. Finding Margaret, solving the mystery of my birth mother. I'm going to give this to you.
Oh, bless you.
That's
Thank you for that.
Thank
I
you.
feel very proud.
I think it's actually out next week.
Yeah, on the 23rd.
It's out on the 23rd,
Yeah,
so I'm very excited about it.
Oh, thank you
Best of
so
luck,
much.
Andrew. Thank you.